Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta.
It's been an interesting few hot weeks, hot days, Cheta. How have you managed to enjoy Nigeria and the UK?
I'm not happy with you.
Did I bring the sunlight?
It's finally raining and the weather has cooled down. I decided to go and sleep and then you started calling me so that we will record.
Hey, man, but you know how it is. We
You
have
actually disturbed my sleep.
it's all for the community,
And it
man.
was a
So for
very
the
sweet it was a very sweet sleep.
don't worry. If you manage to keep it short today, you get back to bed before the rain stops. Hopefully.
Oh, if I managed to keep it short. All right, guys. Thank you. We've done it. Let's go.
Yeah. So, Chira, we want to talk about a few. In the past few days, we've seen a few things. We've been going back and forth about what we want to discuss today, but two things stood out for us. So, in the first half of this episode, we'll speak about a young man named Sharji, who came all the way from Kerala in India, looking for a job that sadly was not there. But if there's a happy ending to this sort of things, he's managed to win almost 30K in court against his employer who brought him here for a year uh, on the pretext of getting a job, and there was none. Then on the second half, we will talk about something that I'm sure quite a lot of men in our community will find interesting: the issue of prostate cancer. But first of all, to Sharji, the man who's just won himself almost 30K because his employer who
Put
brought him here on the pretext that there was a job for him had him wait for a year with no job.
put it in a way that our Nigerian audience will understand. 55 million naira.
Mm, yeah, almost. Yeah, what he's won. No,
It's,
but it
it's
it.
just over 55 million naira.
Mm,
After
mm.
it's like 55.2 million naira thereabouts.
But when you check the fact that, and I'm sure you'll get into this, he paid about £17,000 for to get here. That already takes away that money. Then he's bought a car. He's lived here for a year without job, surviving on, according to him,
on
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 almost
handouts.
on a handout and bread that's almost stale and tap
Hmm.
water. It points to just the desperation that leads people to fall into a trap that a lot of people in our communities are setting for each other. But you know what? Because we've jumped so many steps ahead, let's just wind back, come back to the origin. Just, do you want to take us through the story and why it matters?
So it matters because for the simple fact that it's something that happens a lot. I mean, I know people who have basically been um uh in that trap. Shabin Shaji, I'm trying to be careful in my pronunciation because I always get ticked off when people mispronounce my name. He's been awarded nearly £30,000 by an employment tribunal because Swan Care Solutions, which was his sponsoring employer, did not give him a single day of work for a full year, and in that period they didn't pay him because they said he wasn't working. He's a computer science graduate from India, but he has healthcare experience. And I think that's something that needs to be picked up on because a lot of people who migrate end up doing stuff that they were not trained for, especially lower paid jobs. I mean, we want to go back to something we talked about a couple of months ago when we talked about Zach Polanski saying I would not want to clean people's bombs. It's so regardless of all the noise about the all the anti-immigration rhetoric that the political rights in the UK espouses, a fact remains that there are jobs and there are a lot of those jobs that their
Uh,
people do not want to do. So there's a ripe market for immigrants to come in to take those jobs. Because you have to take into account the basically the relative purchasing power parity. I mean, there was a reason why I started by saying, oh, look at it this way. It's 55 million naira because 30K may not be much to the average Brits. It's 30K is somewhere around the national median wage. It's less than the national median wage, but it's close. So basically, it's what a lot of British people would earn on average. It's not much. But when you convert it, when you Nigerianize it and say 55 million naira, by any definition in Nigeria, 55 million naira is big money. By any definition. In short, if you say you are earning 12 million naira a year in Nigeria, you are well above the national media. So you see how, and this basically paints a picture of why a lot of people from a Nigeria, from a Zimbabwe, from a Ghana, from an India, from a Pakistan are very happy to make the move. Because just by the simple act of relocating, and I would move into the medical field proper, not just the healthcare sector now. Your average doctor in Nigeria, and I hope our non-Nigerian listeners forgive me for using Nigeria a lot as an example. It's where I'm most familiar with. I could also talk about Ghana. Your average doctor in Nigeria earns about 500,000 naira a month, somewhere between 300,000 and 500,000, which is 6 million naira a year at the upper limit. Now, 6 million naira a year would translate to at current exchange rates,
Less than
I mean,
3K.
yeah, about 3,000 pounds roughly. Now, the same doctor, by simply writing an exam, passing it, getting on a plane, and coming to the UK, moves his wage, his annual wage, from 3,000 pounds equivalent to maybe about 70,000 just by getting on a plane. It's too attractive. And because of what he's used to in Nigeria, and this applies to the Indians again, it applies to the Pakistanis. So it's not just Black people from Africa, it's not just Black people from the Caribbean, it's also Asians from many Asian countries, especially South Asian countries. Because of what they have been used to in their areas of origin, there's a lot of deprivations that they can take that someone who was raised here will not be willing to endure. And as a result of that, that disposable income that they make, that they save. So someone who comes here may be more willing to stay in a 2-bedroom flat that's more crowded. And then he has disposable income, which he can send back home. Because remember, black tax is a huge thing. He still has a lot of people back home that he wants to take care of. So that's the setup for the ordeal, as it were. So in the case of Shravin Sharji, he had this Swanker Solutions. They told him to come. He relocated from Kerala. He bought a car for the job because the job meant that he needed to be going great distances. He borrowed money, clearly, in order to be able to do the relocation. He did his training. So he retrained from computer science to care work. But then Swanker never provided him any shifts. And then he ended up
For 1 full year.
destitute for a full year. He ended up destitute, doing food banks, church handouts, all of that stuff. And then eventually he returned to India. And I think this is where one of the places where there's a difference. I think that your average African, not just Nigerian now, would not have sued because we don't trust the legal system. And I would refer back to the survey that we conducted a few weeks ago. A lot of our people clearly do not. So we have carried that mistrust of the legal system from our own countries of origin and brought it here. So the second thing that I would want to bring out very hard, but I won't dwell on this, is the visa trap. Basically, it's a form of modern day slavery. A lot
It
of
is.
people, even in decent jobs here, go through it. When your visa is dependent on an employer, it exposes you to basically bad behavior on the part of the employer. And a lot of employers do it. They treat people very badly because they know that you don't have another choice. So there's a petition. I don't know if it has become, but it's going through parliament now to basically decouple so that even if an employer brings somebody on a visa, the person can still look for another job. You don't have to start going through the whole rigmarole of having to, if you want to change job, you have to apply for a fresh visa and all of that stuff. Because it's
And even when from what I understand, even when you're done with your 5 years, the employer still has to sign off before you can convert to indefinite leave to remain, which means that at every point of your immigration status, or rather at
they they
every
they they,
crucial point, they
they,
have you
they,
by the
they
balls.
basically have you by the balls. As in, so Um, so I think from a legal point of view, the judge did very well. The
Uh,
judge basically said that Swanke treated Sharji as a 0 hours worker, but without the rights that
mm,
a zero hour worker has. And that was the basis of the judge's ruling.
yeah.
So I think it's a good decision that basically um that provides hope for thousands of people, um
In
probably in the
fact,
tens of thousands, because
in fact,
it's
okay, sorry.
yeah, because it's a widespread, it's actually a widespread behavior, particularly in the care sector. There have been dozens of cases. If you watch, so my preferred news program is Channel 4 News.
Uh,
And over the last year, Channel 4 has done, so that's my preferred mainstream media news program.
uh,
And over the last year, Channel 4 has done at least four of these stories about basically care workers who were brought in and then left in legal limbo by unscrupulous care companies, and they're unable to switch employers easily without risking their visa status. As a result of that, and then of course, being on visas, they can't claim benefits, contrary to what the far right will say, and
uh.
many of them are too frightened of being deported to complain. So the practical effects for our community generally is, hopefully, people will become a bit bolder to sue because there's now a clear legal route to recover lost income. I think basically,
Yeah, yeah, Cheta. But sorry, let me just point you. So you say there's a clear legal route to recover lost income. Now, that is one of the issues that when you think of why the people don't sue, it's not just because they distrust the legal system, but it also means that unlike what this young man has done, they do not want to go back. Because when you think about um, a lot of people who have come over, this is almost like a Hail Mary pass on their part. So people have sold properties, people have sold everything. They've
yeah,
upended their lives and they've come here on the hope and borrowed a lot of money as well. We don't always talk
yes,
about that, especially from relatives, from people who, for them, this is our chance out of poverty. And if you're looking at a lot of the economic indices in a lot of our countries, the poverty is only getting worse as the years roll on. So the question is, what are you going back to? So because again, one other thing that we sort of like skipped over is this guy paid £17,000. It is not even legal uh, for you to pay to get this certificate of sponsorship. So it's almost it's some sort of miracle, as it were, that he's been able to get some recompense. Because one of the issues that people would have is, well, if I'm going to start talking about this employer, that means I need to open myself up, or I need to explain that I paid for this for getting an employment. Now you need to then prove that somehow you did not believe, or you believe that it was the right thing to do to pay to be employed, and you were not part of this whole thing of buying a job. So that's one aspect. That's why people would not want to go the legal route. Now, the other thing is, you spoke about the numbers. In between 2023 and 2024, there were 13,418 visas granted to just Nigerian care workers, which was 19% of all the care visas issued. Now, imagine that, because when you look at the care industry, it's populated from the African community anyway. There are lots of Nigerians, a lot of Zimbabweans. So when you look at that sheer number of people, and when we go back to what we saw, I think those 2 episodes ago, when we spoke about how this has turned into business for a lot of people, 13,000 visas. Let us say let us be very conservative and say a fourth or a third of that has been through people who have had to
Backdoor.
pay through backdoor. That is a whole lot of money. And from what I understand, 17,000 was a generous deal, because there are people who will tell you that they're paying upwards of 20K. There was some of that in the news some time ago. So when you look at that, this has become an industry on its own, and it's not just driven by people who are desperate to get to work, but it's also driven by this influencer economy. People who, because the thing that Shravin said is that he watched a YouTube video. He listened to a YouTube influencer who said, well, this is how you're going to get a job. This is how to do it. And that convinced him. Now, this influencer economy is sort of like farming a lot of people who are queuing at the doors of people who are seeing them as nothing other than a cool average, let's say 15K. And it's just, so when you look at it, it's not just the employers that are complicit. It's a lot of these influencers who definitely cannot say, for a lot of them, that they do not know that these work permits are being sold off. So then you have a problem of people who are coming here. Now, this man it doesn't say that, I mean, I think he came alone, but there are people who are also here with their families. So you've come here, you're paying rent. So that the 3K that you would pay for would be like what your yearly income if you're a doctor in Nigeria. For a lot of people, they are paying maybe about a third of that as monthly rent. So you have to pay rent for you, yourself, your family. Now, if you have 2 children, let's say you have 2 children of, say, about 10, 9, boy and girl, that means you can't rent anything other than a 2-bedroom flat, because, or 3, because if you and the missus are sharing one room, the boy and the girl at their age should not share one room. So
Again, this
it's
what you
trap.
have just said goes back to what I said earlier. A lot
Mm.
of people from our environment, from our home countries, are actually with. So this is the ideal. And I think it's important for you to understand our privilege, the privilege that me and you enjoy. In the sense that back home we had very good jobs, we're able to come legally. In my case, I'm in a situation where, despite the exchange, it's very tough. I'm not even going to pretend about that, but I'm still able to somehow get by and still able to provide a roof over my head with separate rooms for my kids and all of that. But a lot of our people come, and again, going back to, and this was somebody from India. I don't remember the name, but I saw a report in Channel 4, exactly the same kind of situation. This was a couple of months ago during the winter, and the family, mother, father, and 3 children were staying in one room in, I think it was in Sheffield. So you have a lot of those situations actually.
Well, you see, I think that also raises another um, problem that is sort of like hiding in the shadow, and that is the
or
fact
hiding
that,
in plain sight.
or in plain sight, because if someone who has who they're a family of 3 or 4, and they are renting one room, if the council for should happen upon that, that's a problem. And
Yes.
because
So
they have no recourse to public
many
funds.
of these people live underground.
Yeah.
They hide. But again, it's important to point out that a majority of the people who end up coming are from, for want of a better word, third world countries, are people who, even back home, which is why many of them are not in a hurry to go back home, are people who things have been tough for them back home somehow, and many of them, they sell lands, they sell property, they sell lands, they sell property, they take predatory loans on the promise of a better life, and that's exchange parity will enable them to make the payments.
So I think that the thing is, the young man has gone back to India now, and so
I mean, he went back before suing.
yeah, he went back before suing because he probably looked at it and said, sod it, what's the worst that can happen? And that in itself is also some sort of privilege, because others may not have the
The
privilege of
ability
saying,
to do that.
yeah, let's do that. So I think if there's anything people should take away from this, is think really hard before you make that that journey. And I agree with you, Chesa. I say this from a place of privilege, from a place of knowing that I had a viable option before making that journey.
I mean,
And
let's look at my own trajectory.
mm,
I was in the UK before. The global financial crisis happened, and I was able to say, sort it, and I went back. The honest truth is, at that point in time, I always wanted to go back. It's just I had a decent job, um, so so I had gotten trapped, as it were, by a decent job. Then the global financial crisis happened. I lost my job, but there are people that I know who, even when they lost their jobs during the global financial crisis, there was nothing you could tell them. They were not going back. So it's something that I'm painfully aware of. That there's that privilege, and there's that knowledge that I have access to networks that if things go rough, I can lean on those. The majority of our people do not have that, and that is something that we must keep.
yeah.
But I think that the practical effects, if we go back to Shajan's story, I think the practical effects is we need to look more at the fact that there are people who exploit the desperation of people to move, um, and people need to now understand that okay, there's a route for recompense. It's very, very important. So essentially, members of our community, migrants' rights organizations, can now use this case as a template for claims on behalf of workers who have been similarly exploited.
Yeah, and if I can shamelessly also plug the importance of uh, what the judge bases his ruling on, which is that 0 hour contract, and that was because at least the Labour government, love them or hate them, and they're not quite popular right now. However, you can't also take away the fact that the workers' right legislation has come into place. So from day one, and this is also what people in our community need to know, from day one, you have certain rights at work. So when people get to work, two things I will always say to people: one, know your rights, but two, also join a trade union, because these are the people who will on your behalf step up and say, hang on, these are the rights of the
It's
worker. These
it's
are
probably one of the reasons why the rights really wants to. I mean, it's one of the reasons why people like Margaret Thatcher destroyed the trade unions. So this is why I always find it hilarious when you call me the resident Tory, because I actually support trade unions. I know the trade unions have done a world of good.
they
If
have.
you know the history, and this is one of the places where people like Tony Blair, of the letter writing fame, and Keir Starmer have actually failed. They've gone so far from because the Labour Party grew out of trade unions, and the fact that we have the 5-day work week, that we have 8-hour days, that we have basic rights
Uh-huh.
across board is as a result of trade unionism. In the 19th century, when there were no trade unions, workers really had it rough.
Mm.
So just my two kobo on there.
Mm. Well, no, I think we should regrade you to the resident lead them. You're no longer the
But
resident
I've said
Tory.
it I've said it before that if there was any party that I would line up behind at this point in time, is the Lib Dems. You people are useless. The
Yeah,
Tories are useless.
I
The,
beg
the
to
less
differ.
the less said about reform, the better.
No, but again, I
So
beg to differ. This young man is able to get recompense because this Labour government has put in workers' right legislation. That means from day one, no longer 6 months when people would do. Or in fact, 2 years. Because I know would happen is employers would wait for maybe 1 month, 1 year, 8 months, or 10 months, and then make a redundancy happen. Because they just know that you're just almost reaching that 2 year mark, so they don't have to pay you. But now from year
I
one, their
I
rights.
I won't I won't mention but this actually happened to someone very close to me. He
Mm.
was recruited directly from Nigeria, and then just before the 2-year mark, he was made redundant.
That is employers are smart. Let me put it that way. So when people get here, one thing you need to do, because again, and I digress a bit. A few people have called me and like, "Oh, counselor, I'm having this issue with my landlord, and I just don't want to do it again. I'm like, dude, you signed a contract. Did you read the contract? You've locked yourself in for a year, or at least if you want to leave, you have to pay the remainder part of this, or at least give 2 months notice and all that. So if you're getting a job here, know that first of all, you're playing with very smart people. You also need to know what the law says about your employment. So this man has been able to understand what the law said about his employment, has been able to sue his employer, and has been able to get about £30,000 or thereabout in compensation. And that some way was a good outcome, or at least a reasonable outcome for him. Um, the lesson here is know what you're
It's a good
getting
outcome
yourself
for him.
into. It's a good outcome for him. So Cheta, let's go for a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about a topic that a lot of men in our community may not want to hear anything about. Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta Wanze.
So, Cheta, at the risk of sounding very uncouth, when last did you get your bum checked?
You do sound very uncouth. Yeah.
Before people go like, well, hang on, what the hell is going on? No. We're talking about
It's a
prostate.
prostrate. Yeah. So
Prostate
it's
checks.
that would be 6 years ago. So I think I'm due another check.
Oh man, you're
Um,
due like at least 3-4 checks, because
yeah.
6 years is a
So
long time.
yes. I'm a bit. So I mean, it's what it is. But the story that we want to talk about basically really is a and I think it's a sad story.
Mm,
The UK National Screening Committee has advised the government against introducing a national prostate cancer screening program for most men. They concluded that widespread use of the PSA blood tests will cause more harm than good. Um, and this is despite the fact that prostate cancer is the most common cancer in the UK. The numbers are more than 64,000 men are diagnosed each year. Um, the harms that they claim include overdiagnosis and unnecessary treatments, leading to incontinence and erectile dysfunction. Um, so the reason why this is a topic for us is that prostate cancer affects Black men disproportionately. 1 in 4 Black men in the UK
mm,
are affected by prostate cancer compared to 1 in 8 white men. Um, Black men, and this is African or Caribbean ancestry males, are 2.5 times more likely to die of prostate cancer than white men. We tend to be diagnosed younger, and we are consistently diagnosed at later, harder to treat stages. There was an audit last year that covered 5 years of NHS data, and it
mm,
confirmed that Black men aged between 70 and 74 had 17 new diagnoses per 1,000 men. That's the highest of any ethnic group in the
mm,
UK. So essentially, what all of these numbers is saying is that this decision will affect this particular demography. Um, it will hit this particular demography very hard. Now, relating it to politics, I think this is the kind of thing that shows when you either have no voice or you have a voice and you don't know how to use it. If we take if we relate it, if we go back a couple of weeks, we talked about how some and pardon the language, some nigger said that they should melt all Nigerians and use us to fill potholes. And as far as I can tell, till now, no Nigerian member or no Nigerian heritage member of parliament has spoken up about it.
mm.
So these are people who have a voice, but they have failed to use it. So that is that's completely problematic. Completely problematic.
It is. Now, the funny thing is, I think when I saw this story, I was upset, but also not shocked. And this is because it's something we see. We spoke about it even in our interview with David Weaver, chair of Operation Black Vote, which I'd encourage a lot of people to listen to. But he said when we don't either register to vote or when we don't take part in the electoral, and I'm paraphrasing, but when we don't take part in the electoral process, politicians don't have to listen to us.
Yeah.
So it's shocking that this UK National Screening Committee, which is an independent body of experts that advises ministers and NHS on whether to introduce, cut back, or modify population screening programs, and what they do basically is also look at the cost benefit analysis of screening programs. They can confidently say, well, don't screen men, or don't get people to proactively check for prostate cancer. In fact, they went even further to say that they don't recommend, even though it is widely known that Black men uh, have, as we said, are prone to getting prostate cancer twice more than white men, but they don't recover providing any proactive test for this particular group. And when I read that, I was like, hang on, this has to be surely. these guys would have also had someone that will speak up on behalf of the community. So I did a quick check on this UK National Screening Committee, and just you won't believe there's no one black person, never mind a black man, on that committee. So these are people who are making decisions on issues that affect us disproportionately, but because they don't have the lived experience and they can't even borrow from other research that has gone there in front of them to say, well, I may not have this lived experience, but I can see the research that says this group is disproportionately affected by this. Let me have some empathy. No, they just, it doesn't happen in their world, so it doesn't happen at all. And the but when you look at Prostate Cancer UK, their response said the NHS holds electronic health data that could fill these gaps, but nobody has made full use of these records, and they weren't reviewed by the committee. So how do you make a cost-benefit analysis recommendation to the government based solely on, this will save you money, not that this will save you lives? And yeah, a few black men may die, but hey ho, you don't look at the data. It's scandalous.
It goes back to it sounds scandalous to you, but see, basically, and so I'm removing my emotional hats here and putting on my naked geopolitical hats. Like I've told you before, the world has returned back to a mighty's rights. Most people just haven't seen it, and I think the argument can actually be made that the world never actually left a mighty's rights paradigm. Instead, it was just better hidden for a couple of decades. But now it's slowly coming back nakedly that might is right. So going back to our discussion with Mr. Weaver last week, that thing that he said, which I pointed out again, which you have highlighted again, if you don't participate, then decisions will be made that are not in your interest without your inputs, and nobody will care. So think about it this way. The average white voter registration rate in the UK is 87%. The average Black African voter registration rate is 61%. The average Black Caribbean is 54%. The numbers for Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian are 76, 70, and 67. So pretty much every other group participates more in the process than we do. Essentially, we are the ones using our own hand to put ourselves on the menu. And it goes back to something that I have said a number of times on this podcast. Many of us carry our distrust of the system from our home countries and bring it here, and as a result refuse to engage. And it is very self-defeating. Again, and you will say it's a defense, you will say I'm defending her, and it is a very logical defense. Back in 2010, when Kemi Badenoch was trying to get involved, get into politics, she first tried to rally her community, the Nigerian community, and she quickly found that there's nothing to see here. So, but the only place where I would fault her is that rather than just ignore, she completely turned against. But then it probably also explains, when you come to think of it, me and you complain about the fact that Nigerian MPs, Nigerian heritage MPs, have not said a word about that reform guy. It is entirely possible that I'm not trying to excuse. I'm thinking out loud here, trying to get a sort of explanation. It is entirely possible that they've come to the conclusion that they lose nothing. It's self-defeating in my view, but it can be explained.
Uh,
If my people and if I get elected into position despite my people, in spite of my people, not because of them, why should I stick my neck out for them?
oh yeah, and look, I agree with you completely. First with the Kemi, I think we created a villain that is Kemi, because there's that there's there's evidence out there that she did try to lean into her Nigerianness, but us being who we are, we joke about almost everything. Nothing, sadly, we don't look at strategically at situations. We just is as we say in Nigeria, is vibes and inshallah. It's like, yeah, we'll just go with the flow. But other communities take representation seriously. Other communities do, and but it's not just the issue of taking representation seriously, but there's also that issue of, I think there's cultural people thinking, which is why I started, when I started this, I was like, oh, when last did you check your bum? Because I remember talking to a few friends. Now, I've just had my prostate checked for the second time um, about 3 weeks ago. And I in trying to get a few friends to go check their prostate. One said to me, "What? So I lie down there now. Somebody will now stick their hand in my bum. I'm a titled man, And it was funny, but it wasn't funny because we look at the cultural nuances that come to play, but we also look at a. It's not that we're prude, but it's just the thought of, how on earth am I going to just lay there, spread my cheeks, and then somebody will do this? And but on one hand, yes, there's that. You have to, if you're going to look for the physical examination, but there's also this prostate specific antigen test, which is a blood test, where
The PSA test.
PSA test. They take your blood and test it. So even if you're a very, very culturally attuned, wherever you want to put it, African man, and you don't think someone else should be sticking their finger in your bum, at least do the blood test. But there's a and I don't know whether it's just that machismo feeling of, oh, I can't get it, everything will be all right, or maybe people think that the only way to get a prostate test done is, the traditional method. But even if it is that, I've been in a situation, Cheta, where I was going to have an operation. I was going to have a medical procedure, and I was laid on the operating table naked. And at that point, the most important thing to me was leaving this place alive, not if somebody was seeing my nakedness. Because we
Yeah.
we look at these things and we're like, oh no, how can I do this? But think about it, if you're diagnosed, and as you said, Cheta, we have an aggressive, or we're prone to an aggressive form of prostate cancer, and when we are diagnosed, it's not even at the first stage; it's most times at second or third stage. So at that stage, someone sticking their finger in your bum is a list of your problem. So we do need to start thinking about rethinking these things. And you don't have to announce it when, if that is your problem again, you don't have to, there's no sticker on your head that says, oh, I've just gone to spread my cheeks in the GP's office. Go do your thing privately, get checked, make sure you're in health. And the other thing as well, when you look at communities from, say, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Ghana, we always congregate around churches here in the UK. One question to the listeners, and perhaps we should maybe do a poll about this, is, when was the last time your church talked about prostate health? Because we do need our institutions to start talking about these issues that matter a lot to us.
You do know that I don't. Anyway, let me not go into a church rant again.
Madam listens to this
Uh,
podcast, so you better just behave yourself.
it's the same thing I'm saying.
So that's it. That's all you wanted to say, right?
I mean, I don't rate our church is very our church is very highly. And let me just end it there.
Well, no, but we need to think a lot. We need to rethink our attitude to this because so there are two things. If there are two things that we take from this is one, your non-involvement in the political space has far-reaching consequences. That's one. But then the
Yes.
second thing is for the sake of your health, for the sake of being splayed naked and everyone is seeing you in your full glory or unglory, go check yourself now. No, there's no plaster on anyone's head that says I've had a finger stuck up my bum. If
I like the symmetry here. It's a PSA announcement. This is a public service announcement.
I see
Yeah.
what you did there.
So yeah. So basically, I think in terms of numbers, more than 2,300 black men in the UK are going to die over the next 10 years from prostate cancer. And many of these deaths could have been prevented um, if they were diagnosed early.
Uh,
Um, we've had incidents where, and I think it was a report I read when I was researching this in the Independent. I should have taken a better note of it. But there was a woman who lost her father, and she said that black men, I'm quoting her, she said black men are being punished. So that stuck in my head. But I should have noted it. I should have put it in my notes. Um, so I think it was in the Independent I saw it. So basically, for African men, Caribbean men, um, many who are middle-aged, older men, this decision essentially means that there will be no NHS safety nets for a screening program that will provide protection for them at
yeah.
precisely the age when their risk is highest. And if we tie it with the earlier story, if we take both stories together, the story of Sharji and the this story of uh, the the prostate screening. Um, it shows a structural tension in this country, um, in how this country, and to be fair to the UK, most Western countries treat their African and Black communities. I think that the prostate cancer decision it can, and one thing that you take it is their language, so they know how to couch even ill intentions in the language of good intentions. Um, it's the truth is it's going to produce an outcome that disproportionately leaves our community to die of a preventable disease.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of labor law, Sharji's victory means that um, it's essentially moving in the opposite direction to the prostate cancer thing. Basically, it's offering a legal remedy um, to expats um, who have been exploited by a visa system that that still gives employers enormous power over vulnerable people. So one of these stories that we've talked about today deepens historic inequality, and the other one basically begins to correct a historic inequality. So today is essentially a day of balance
Yeah.
in that respect.
And one other thing, Cheta, just to add is, while if you go to the NHS, if you speak to your GP, they'll most probably, and as a man asking for prostate cancer test, they'll most probably tell you, no, you should come back at either 45 or 50. But you do need to tell them that back in our communities, because of the high risk in our genes, uh, we are advised to do this screening at 40. So here the guidance, where there is that guidance, would say 45 years or 50. However, uh, especially in Nigeria, when you're 40, you're being told you do need to start testing yourself for prostate cancer. So you do need to, in many cases, ask your GP, which is I've done. I've done this test twice now, and I've had to be the one to say to the GP, no, I should start testing because I'm over 40. I should have started testing when I was 40. And that's something you can still ask. So whilst this is a the committee has made this recommendation. The government hasn't taken it on board, and again, I should also pay credence to former Prime Minister David Cameron, who has come out to say that, look, this is bonkers. Not his words, it is my interpretation of it anyway. But it's good to see because he too has
Cameron is he's had prostate
he's
before,
had prostate
so
cancer.
yeah. David Cameron is an interesting fellow. I think we should dedicate an episode to him because he comes from wealth, but he comes from wealth. He's out of touch in many respects, but I think that he has a lot of empathy.
I mean, he was one that brought in our sister Kemi and all those other.
He brought in a lot of minorities into the Conservative Party.
And he was one that talked about the compassionate
so Kemi, Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, Claire Coutinho. I deliberately mentioned all these people because they're all minorities and they're all female. So he's someone that we should talk about at some point, but he's a very, very interesting character.
He is. Well, Cheta, I think that's a good place to end it, where two of us agree that at least in the past few years, there's one former conservative prime minister that we think is maybe okay. What do you think?
I don't think he's maybe okay. I think so. I think he was promoted beyond his competence and all of that good stuff. But generally, as a human being, I think he's actually a good guy. Compared to some of the things that their party has thrown up.
Well, true that. But you know what, Cheta, thanks for making it this time, and please make sure you book your test. We can't be doing all this without leading by example.
I will correct that. And as a titled man, I'll do the PSA.
Spread them cheeks, man. Anyway, I'll see you at the next one.
I didn't know that you were auditioning for rap for rap or hip hop talent contests.
I used to rap in union. Don't mess with me.
Gangster rap. No wonder you have dada.
I'm a bad boy. Anyway.
All right then. Later,
man.